This story was told by Mr. Joe, who experienced a terrifying event and has come to share it with us. It was the Songkran festival 10 years ago when Mr. Joe's life was turned upside down by a chilling supernatural encounter. He and his now wife would remember it as a night they could never forget. Originally, Joe and his friends had planned to celebrate Songkran in Chiang Mai, but just one day before departure, a friend was badly injured in a motorbike accident. Their trip was canceled. Joe and his wife, left with no plans and no car but Joe's own heavily modified, barely roadworthy vehicle, decided to visit Joe's parents at their farm in the rural borderlands between Saraburi, Lopburi, and Phetchabun. On April 13th, they set out at 11 a.m., delayed by errands at the mall. By the time they reached the area near the farm, it was almost 4 or 5 p.m., the April sun still blazing. Joe decided to take a shortcut rather than the usual winding route. The shortcut was a narrow road running beside an irrigation canal, one Joe barely remembered. The landmark was supposed to be 2 roadside shelters. The second should be an old wooden one with a green tin roof. But when they arrived, the second shelter was now a concrete structure with a strange spirit house beside it. Joe shrugged, thinking things must have changed, and turned off the highway. But as they drove, there were no shops, no houses, only empty fields. Joe's unease grew. He turned the car back, returning to the highway to start again. But every time, the second shelter was still the new concrete one. Time slipped by. It was now nearly 5:30 p.m. Joe tried to call his father for directions, but it was Songkran. His father was drunk and incomprehensible. Frustrated, Joe drove back down the shortcut. Around 6 p.m., his wife became anxious and pleaded to leave. Joe agreed and decided to call for someone to pick them up. As he tried to turn the car around, disaster struck. The rear axle snapped. The car became immobile, its back wheel stuck, the other spinning helplessly in the dirt. Night was falling. Their phones barely had a signal. Joe's wife steered, while he tried to push the car out of the way of the road. Their only hope that someone might come by. As dusk deepened, a single light appeared, a red and black motorbike with 2 women, one driving, the other sitting sideways. Joe waved for help, but they passed by without a word. 10 minutes later, the same motorbike returned from the same direction, impossibly fast for such a narrow, dead-end road. Joe waved again. This time, the woman riding pillion glanced at him with mournful eyes, but didn't stop. Joe was irritated, but his wife was getting frightened. Darkness fell. They sat in the car, afraid to use too much battery. Around 7:15, a pair of truck headlights appeared. It was a 6-wheeler, coming from deeper in the fields. Joe flagged it down. The couple driving, an older man and woman, were wary, asking, "Are you a ghost or a person?" Joe insisted they were real, stranded, and needed help. The truck driver knew Joe's father and agreed to tow the car to the highway. As they attached the tow cable, the motorbike's light reappeared for a third time. Joe was ready to confront them, but the truck driver grabbed him. "What are you doing?" Joe explained, but when he turned to look, his blood ran cold. The two women were no longer normal. The passenger's clothes were torn, her face and arms bloodied, her mouth split and leaking blood. Worst of all, her head seemed to dangle loosely, lolling with each bump. She stared at Joe, and he thought he heard her whisper, "I never made it." Then they disappeared into the darkness. Everyone saw it. The older woman screamed and ran to the truck. The driver's hands shook as he finished the tow. Joe's wife vomited in fear. They hurried into the truck, but as they drove off, the cable snapped, breaking a window. They had to start again. All the while, the lights from the motorbike flickered in the distance. The driver put a protective amulet around Joe's neck. They finished tying the cable and finally made it out to the main road, a motorbike light vanishing before they could pass it. At the highway, relatives picked them up and asked why the car was so battered. Joe explained, and the worker revealed that the shortcut had not been used in years. The next morning, Joe told his father everything. His father revealed a terrible truth. Months before, two local girls, one the respected leader's daughter, had died in a horrific crash at the second shelter. The passenger's face was mangled, her mouth torn. The villagers had rebuilt the shelter and placed a spirit house for the lost souls. The leader thought the spirits had been sent away with rituals, but perhaps building a new spirit house only anchored them further. The local monk believed spirits who died violently were trapped, doomed to repeat their last journey. That was why the motorbike and the mournful girl circled the road again and again, never reaching home. Joe remembered, shaken, how there was no engine noise, only the sound of tires and a hollow thumping. The sadness in the girls' faces, the way they never stopped. Perhaps, he thought, their refusal to help was a kind of mercy. They didn't want him to see their full horror. He was grateful for the courage of the old truck drivers who by strange luck had dared the haunted road that night. To thank them, Joe's father hired them to work on the farm, a kindness that lasted for years. Joe, too, will never forget the unlucky number 13, the date, the hour, even his own S13 model car. All a warning that some roads are better left untraveled.